So thank you all. If you have signed on here, you are here for a meeting of the Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals zoning docket for February 8th, 2022. Just to kind of walk you through a little bit, in your WebEx window, you will see a series of faces. My name is Katie Byrne. I am the Executive Director for the BMZA, and essentially I'm operating the WebEx meeting and assisting the board as we move through the docket. James Fields, who you see on your screen, is our chair. Sabrina Johnson Turner is also a board member. Bill Cunningham is a board member, and Frank Bonaventure is here as a board member. So those are the 4 BMZA board members. Becky Witt is our assistant counsel, the attorney to the board. So we'll get started. If you've signed on via the internet, you're considered an attendee. So what you'll see is you don't have the ability to turn your camera on. You also do not have the ability to mute or unmute yourself. When your case is called, I will then elevate you to a panelist or be able to unmute you, and you should be able to turn your camera on. You will see buttons at the bottom of your screen, a microphone, and the chat feature. You should be able to see, like as I said, the board and myself on the screen. Attendees who call in. So if you are calling in from your phone and we're looking for you, you'll hear me say, I'm going to go to the call-in users. When I click on the phone number, you will hear 2 beeps. If your case is called, please speak up right away. If it is not your case or a case that you're going to be testifying on, please say nothing and I will move on to the next caller. If you're unable to connect via audio, please use the chat feature. It does happen sometimes where I unmute someone and you're not able to speak, but you can put messages in the chat and we will go ahead and communicate with you that way. So 2 ways to testify in either support or opposition: the chat feature, put in a message identifying the case number, whether you're or whether you're in support or whether you oppose. There's also a raise your hand function. You can raise the hand and let me know that you wish to speak when the case is called. Be sure to take your hand down after the case is finished. Please do not use the Q&A. I'm only able to see the chat feature during the hearing. The order of testimony is as follows. The applicant goes first, followed by any support for the application. Any opposition would go next, and then finally the applicant gets the last word and testimony closes. Anybody speaking on any matter before this board is considered to be testifying under oath and required to speak the whole truth and nothing but the truth. If you have any issues with WebEx, you can call our office. Someone will be able to answer your call. Please do not email me because I won't be able to respond to emails during the hearing. The office number is 410-396-4301. If you're having technical difficulties and can't participate for that reason, please send an email explaining what your technical difficulties were to bmza@baltimorecity.gov. Just note that cases will be called by the chair and we will proceed through the entire docket. Your case may not be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda, so please remain alert. And at this point, I will turn it over to our chair, Mr. Fields.
Thank you, Ms. Byrne. We will endeavor, once we hear this case or your case, to render a decision at the end of the docket following a deliberation period. You may listen in on the deliberations, but you can't participate in them. In any event, you should receive your a decision from the BMZA board within approximately 30 days. You can certainly feel free to contact the BMZ office at 410-396-4301, prior to that time to learn of what the decision is. But we ask that until you receive your formal decision in writing, that you not undertake to pursue your project, and certainly don't do any work in Baltimore City without pulling the proper permits. On this docket, we have several matters that at least were originally on the docket, but have either been postponed or withdrawn. I will identify those matters so that you can look to be sure that if you're here on those matters, they will not be heard and are likely to be rescheduled at another time. And I'll just identify those as case number 2021-277, 901 South Clinton Street. The appellant is Alice Vasilia. That matter has been postponed. Look out for new information on that being rescheduled. Case number 2021-306, 6205 Lincoln Avenue. Donnie Ancree is the appellant. That matter has been withdrawn, so that may not be rescheduled. We'll just have to see what happens, but in any event, it will not go forward today. 2021-306. Another postponed case is 2021-307, 1904 Mount Royal Terrace. Chris Weston is the appellant. Again, 1904 Mount Royal Terrace. That will not be heard today and will likely be rescheduled. Okay. Katie, I guess for 315, we'll just wait till we get there and see
Yeah.
what happens.
I think
All
so.
right. The bulk of our docket today are consent cases. And for those new to this process, consent matters are matters for which the board believes it has sufficient information to approve the appeal. And so the process will be to call those matters, to hear reports from staff and from the planning department, and then to dispose of those matters, which is in effect an approval of the application. All right. So with that, I'll commence the docket for today with consent cases.
Hey, James.
Yes,
James,
sir.
this is Bill. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Gotcha. Case number 2021-168, 3566 Pool Street. The appellant is Nicholas Blendy, and this matter involves seeks a variance to bulk regulations to renovate an existing detached garage, 18 feet by 40 feet, by demolishing the current structure and constructing a new single-story detached garage in the rear with the dimensions of 25 feet by 30 feet with a side yard variance. Here any reports we have from planning and staff.
Thank you. Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
To build the structure the applicant is seeking, they need an accessory structure height variance. 15 feet is required, 18 feet 9 is proposed. So it's a 3 foot 9 inch variance request. The rear yard setback 25 feet is required, 0 is proposed. So it's a full 25-foot variance. And it's my understanding that the new construction will be on the footprint of the old existing garage. Mr. Blendy is with us. He's unmuted and has been made a panelist. Just want to make sure all of that is correct, Mr. Blendy. As we stated, those are the variances you're seeking.
Yes, Ms. Executive Director.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Blendy.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
All right. Sir, is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this time?
Sure. I briefly thank you for allowing me to appear before, and I'm quite impressed with the Executive Director. As someone who in my day job runs these, I'm impressed with how quickly and rapidly she went through the rules. My chairman must be envious. I'll just state for the record, I am the appellant, the owner of the property, and I'll just briefly read through for the facts. Knowing that you said preliminary approval, the property is unique in the sense that it runs lot line to lot line, block to block, 150 full feet. There's a 5-foot alley on one side, and then on the other side of that, there are some densely packed 5 row homes. I believe that the uniqueness of the property is such that it's not as a result of the zoning code, and it would be, in the absence of getting these variants, there would be practical difficulty due to the alley on the one side. I do not, it's not exclusively based on a desire to increase the value of the property. The variance is not injurious to the use or enjoyment of any of the immediate vicinity neighbors. It does not substantially diminish the impaired property values in the neighborhood. It's in harmony with the purpose and intent of the zoning code, and is not precluded by or will not adversely affect any urban renewal plan, the city's comprehensive master plan, or any CHAP district matters, and it will not otherwise be detrimental to the health, public safety, or welfare of the code or any way contrary to public interest.
Mr. Blendy, that was awesome. You know what? If this was not if this was a contested case, I think you'd win that one too. So you are on a consent docket, and I'm happy to tell you that the board, having heard your appeal, we believe you have sufficient information to approve your appeal. All right. Good luck. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay. Enjoy that garage. Okay. Moving on to the next consent case, case number 2021-302, 2506 Pine Brush Road. Donnie Ancree is the appellant. And this matter addresses variances necessary to construct a two-story rear addition. And I'll hear from planning and staff.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The variance required for this particular request is a rear yard setback. 30 feet is required, 25 feet is proposed, so it's a 5-foot variance requested. Mr. Ankry is been made a panelist, and I see he's ready to go. And Mr. Ankry, we'll keep you because we have you on the next one as well.
Perfect. Thank
All
you.
right.
I actually have two more.
Yep.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me on.
Good
I
afternoon,
am
Mr. Ankry.
the architect for this proposed addition, and our clients, they have their existing house is set back pretty deep into the lot. It's not a big lot. They're a growing family. We're looking to add some kitchen space, some additional bedrooms. So we we enlarged to the amount that we can to fit what we need without going overboard, and so we try to keep it as far away from the back as we can. But unfortunately, we had to go 5 feet over the setback. So hopefully that is not a concern on the city side.
It isn't, Mr. Ankry, and if there's nothing else you'd like to add, in addition to that information, which is very helpful, can tell you that the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, so sit tight. We're going to call the next case that you have, case number 2021-303, 5919 Winter Avenue. And again, Mr. Ankry, you are the appellant, and this matter addresses variances necessary to construct a one-story side addition, side deck, and covered front porch. And we'll hear from planning and staff and come back to you.
Yep.
Thank you. Planning Department has no comment on this application.
So there are 2 variances required for this project to move forward. The first one is an interior side yard setback. 10 feet is required, 1.5 feet proposed. So it's an 8.5-foot variance requested. Then there's a front yard setback. 30 feet is required, 11 is proposed. So a 19-foot variance to the front yard setback is what's being requested.
All right. Well-
I'm sorry.
And anything you'd like to add on the record for this matter, Mr. Ankry?
So yeah, the 1.5, I believe, is to the deck. 3 is to the addition. Similar situation. We needed to get a larger kitchen, a new deck for the family. They're very constricted with their space. But the neighbor reached out to my client reached out to their neighbor. They got signatures. They were fully supportive of what we're proposing, and so we're happy that it worked out.
Okay, terrific. Again, the board, having heard your appeal for this matter, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ankry, before you jump off, I just want to confirm, we had you on for 2021-306, but we have a note that that's been withdrawn. I just want to confirm that that's the
I
case.
do have one more. I have 2021-304.
Oh, okay, you'll hear
Oh,
from
that's
Ms.
you?
Markovich.
Okay, for the Bancroft. Okay, all right, great.
Okay,
All right,
awesome.
we'll sit tight and we'll call that.
Yeah, I think
Case number 2021-304, 3711 Bancroft Road. We have the appellant listed as Malcolm Markowitz, but should be represented by Mr. Ankry. And this appeal addresses variances necessary to construct a 2-story rear addition. I'll hear from planning and staff.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
it's 1 variance requested, an interior side yard setback, 10 feet is required, 6 is proposed, so it's a 4-foot variance requested. In addition, we have signed statements of approval from the adjacent neighbor in the file that we received for this project.
Very well. All right, Mr. Ankry, is there anything you'd like to add on behalf of the applicant on this matter?
Same strategy we had before. We had to gain some space, but don't want to go overboard. Kept it to as minimum as we can. Neighbors signed next door, so that was great. It is a semi-detached property, so we are limited with the directions that we can go. So we're very mindful with our proposed size, and I'm happy that the neighbors were supportive.
Very well. The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal for this property. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
All right, you too. Okay, moving on to the consent docket, case number 2021-308, 2232 East Monument Street. The appellant is Vision Investment LLC, and this is a request to use the ground floor of the premises as a healthcare clinic. And I'll hear from planning and staff, please.
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this application, notes that this property is within the Middle East Urban Renewal Plan area. That plan does require any rehabilitation of buildings to be in its accordance with exterior rehabilitation standards that are mentioned in the plan. We encourage the applicant to consult with this department concerning that matter. The department recommends that approval of the application be subject to the condition that all improvements or alterations to the existing structure are completed or installed in accordance with plans to be approved by the Department of Planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French.
This is a variance and conditional uses, both are requested. The conditional use is a healthcare clinic in a C1 zoning district. It requires board approval. Off-street parking spaces, 6 are required, none are provided, so it's a 6-space variance requested to off-street parking. And if you are here as the applicant, could you please raise your hand or put in the chat so that I can elevate you to a panelist to testify on this. And if anybody else is here in support or in opposition, again, please raise your hand or place in the chat that you are here to testify on behalf of this particular application, 2021-308-2232 East Monument Street.
Is this still on the consent docket?
It is,
Yeah.
but I just throwing it out there.
Sure.
I don't see any hand raised. I don't see chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the call-in users. So if you are the applicant for 2022-32 East Monument Street, 2021-308 Vision LLC, please speak up when you hear 2 beeps. Okay, moving to the next caller. All right, looks like we have somebody in the Q&A, Mr. Walter Toller. Mr. Toller, are you here on behalf of the applicant?
Yes,
Okay,
Great.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, ma'am.
We can hear you, Mr. Caller.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. A little technical difficulties. This is actually our first time being on the panel.
No problem. We welcome you and thank you for joining us today. Sir, is there anything you'd like to add to the application today?
Yes, sir. So basically, we're trying to form a mental health clinic, and we're going to be providing alcohol and substance abuse services, counseling, and things of that nature. Much needed in this community. And actually, there's very few facilities in the area that's providing those types of services.
Okay. Very well. If that's all, then I can tell you that the board, having heard your appeal, I believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
I apologize. It's just our first time on the panel, and we didn't know what to expect. I
No problem.
apologize.
You're just fine. Thank you so much, sir. Great. That concludes 308. Moving on to 2021-310, 3347 Avondale Avenue. The appellant is Monte, Holland, and this matter addresses variances necessary to construct a 2-story rear addition. I'll hear from planning and staff.
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this application, notes that this property is in the Park Heights Urban Renewal Plan area. That plan also requires departmental approval of building additions and so on. The details are included in the memorandum that you have in front of you. The department therefore recommends that approval of this application for residential use only be subject to the condition that all additions and exterior alterations are completed in accordance with architectural building plans to be approved by the Department of Planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French.
it looks, before we move on, it looks like I missed a Carl with a hand raise. So I'm not 100% sure if he was with the last applicant or not. So Mr. Carl, I'm going to unmute you just to make sure that I didn't miss you. Mr. Carl?
Yes, hi, how you doing? My
Hi.
name is Carl Ramsey, Ramsey Design Group LLC. We are the architects for this project.
Okay, first, sir, before you get started, for which project? For this, for Avondale?
Yes, for 3327 Avondale Road, yes.
Okay, great.
So the project was.
Would you mind, sir, waiting 1 minute? Because I didn't get to say my thing. And I also have, it looks like Mr. Holland on as well. So if you hold on really quickly, I'll get both you and Mr. Holland unmuted into a panelist state. So the variance requested, there's only one variance requested. It's a corner side yard setback, 15 feet is required, 0 is proposed, so it's a full 15-foot variance. Sorry about that, Mr. Carl, and I'll get Mr. Oliver here too as well.
Okay. Do we need to hear from Mr. Holland? Well, we have Mr. Carl
Holland.
on.
Right, you have Mr. Carl. Yeah.
Mr. Carl, go ahead, sir.
So the existing building was built in 1923 as a single-family townhome. The current owner is in the process of modernizing the structure and requires an addition to the rear of the existing structure to increase the market value to today's standards. The addition of the existing building footprint, adding 200 square foot to the building and the footprint. The existing zoning is R7, which requires a 15-foot setback on the corner lot structure, but the building is pre-existing prior to the zoning code. So right now the building is not in, I guess it's in violation of the code itself. So the existing lot is 20 by 104. The total new square footage would be a total of 2,000 square feet, all levels, including the addition. The zoning restriction of 15-foot setback does not allow for the existing structure to exist or any additions to the structure to exist.
Okay. Thank you for that additional background. Can we move to Mr. Holland, or where are we?
Let's see. So Mr. Holland, Mr. Holland, you're unmuted.
Hello, how's everyone today?
We're doing well, sir. Is there anything in addition to what your architect has stated that you'd like to add?
No, sir. Actually, I'm just sitting in. I appreciate you guys.
All right. Thank you. And Katie, did you say there was someone, a third person?
Nope, that was
Yeah.
it, just those two.
All right. Well, Mr. Holland, since you're the applicant, the appellant here, I can tell you that the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for your time. Have a good day.
Right. Have a great day.
Yes, sir.
Right. Moving on. Case number 2021-314, 133 East Clement Street. Carrie Beer is the appellant. And this matter addresses variances needed to construct a one-story rear addition. And I'll hear from planning and staff, any reports you may have. Thanks.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Only one variance is required for the proposed construction. It's a rear yard setback. 20 feet is required, 12 feet is proposed, so it's an 8-foot variance requested. Ms. Beer, I've made you a panelist and you are now unmuted.
Hi, thank you. Just clarifying on the docket, the name is Kristen.
Yeah, that was an error on our part, so that has been corrected.
And so it's Mr. Roger Venezia. And it was also specific that we were asking for a 1-story. That was not what was in our appeal. We will likely be doing 2 stories and a deck. So I don't know if that changes anything.
As long as the drawing has not changed from what you submitted.
Correct. Yeah, the footprint will be the same.
Okay.
We're still asking for the same setback.
All right. So it doesn't, because you don't need a height variance, the only setback that you need, it doesn't necessarily matter to us how many stories it is. If there's no height variance required, if the only setback that you need is a rear yard variance, then that's all that's important. And as long as there's no difference in the drawings from what the board has seen.
Okay. Yep, I think we're good. So yeah, there's an existing addition there now that we'll be removing as it's not in good condition. We're not going beyond the point of that current addition, and it's a small lot, so we appreciate your consideration.
All right. Well, thank you. The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much, Ms. Beer.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thanks.
Let's move on to case number 2021-317, 514 through 516 Enzer Street. The appellant is Malik Maman, and this application seeks to use a portion known as 5168 Enzer Street as a driving school. I'll hear from planning and staff.
Department of Planning has no comment on this application. Thank you.
The request, there will be basically two issues, a conditional use as well as a variance. The conditional use is an education facility, commercial vocational. It's conditional in a C2 district. In addition, off-street parking, 2 spaces are required, 0 are provided. A 2-space variance is requested. We've got no support or opposition in the file for this. And once we pull this one up, James, if we wouldn't mind calling 2021-316 after, because we never were able to get a hold of them, but that's okay. We'll call. Let's go ahead and work with this one. So I'm looking for Malik Maman. Don't see Malik Maman here on the list. So if you're here, please raise your hand. Or I'm going to go through the call-in users as well, or put in the chat that you're here for this particular appeal. So we're going to start with call-in user 1. So if you're here for 2021-317, please speak up after you hear 2 beeps. All right, I think I've got something in the chat. Miss Tillman, I think you might be here. There might be a Miss Tillman that's here for this matter. So Miss Tillman, I'm gonna unmute you. Miss Tillman, are you here for the applicant for this one?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Yes,
all
I
right,
am.
I'm gonna make you a panelist. Here we go.
Okay.
Miss Tillman.
Okay. You can hear me now?
We sure can, Ms. Tillman.
Okay. Actually, when the application was submitted, the property was in the name of Malik Rockman. I did forward the new information and let them know that Malik Rockman is no longer the owner of the property. And also the information that I received from the zoning board, it has as 5168 Enzer Street. That's supposed to be 516B Enzer
Okay.
Street. And I've given them all of this information down at the planning department and down at the
We
the
have
zoning.
514 to 516 Enzer Street, which is, but you are Unit B in there. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, yeah, what I read was 5168, because that's what I saw in the.
That's supposed to be a B.
Gotcha, understood.
516B.
Okay.
516B is the driving, or will be the driving school. 516A is the tag and title. Now, I did get approval for the tag and title, but I had to come through the zoning for the school.
Sure.
514 is already a business. That's not in this equation at all, 514.
Okay,
Okay, so basically what we're trying to do now is 516 as a driving school. That's it.
understood. If there's nothing else, I can tell you that the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal for 516B as a driving school.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
All right, let me call 2021-316, 3309 Toon Street. Mark Howard is identified as the appellant. And this is a matter that we presently don't have proof of posting.
Correct.
All right. Well, let's go. I guess we'll get the reports and then we'll hear from Mr. Howard or.
Yeah, I don't see him listed, but I think we needed to call it anyway because
All right, sure.
we never received anything. They didn't communicate back, so I didn't know if they were just gonna show up. So we needed to make sure that we called it and,
Okay.
in case it was posted and people are here for it.
Right.
We just didn't get proof. So this one, it's a rear addition, a lot coverage. They want, it's 80% is allowed. They're looking at 82.7, which is proposed. So it's a 2.7% variance. Rear yard setback 20 is required, 10 is proposed. So it's a 10-foot variance. I do not see Mr. Howard here. If you are here on behalf of this application, you know, please know that we don't have proof of posting and it will need to be rescheduled. So I don't see any hand raising. I don't see anything in the chat. Let me just. All right, yep. So, all right, now I just want to make sure we went through that. So we will not be hearing it. No one is here for it then.
Gotcha. No problem.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, case number 2021-318, 4605 Bayonne Avenue. Tara Gebhardt is the appellant. And this application seeks to construct a one-story garage foundation to be poured to accommodate a larger footprint. And I'll hear from planning and staff for the reports you may have. Thanks.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
2 variances are required. An interior side yard setback, 10 feet is required, 3 feet is proposed, so it's a 7-foot variance. And then a rear yard setback, 25 feet is required, 13 feet proposed, 12-foot variance requested. The project will replace a previously existing garage that was destroyed by fire. And Ms. Gephardt, I've made you panelist and you're unmuted.
Thank you so much.
Good
So
afternoon.
we live on a narrow lot, 50 by 150. As you mentioned, our detached garage burned down last summer. The old dimensions of that were 14 by 20, and it was approximately within 5 feet of the side yard property line. We're looking to build a slightly larger garage on that same footprint, but overlapping it just a little bit. The mason has instructed that we can use the existing concrete pad by adding onto it at least 2 feet in all 4 directions. So we plan on using the minimum 2 feet on the westmost side yard, which would give us a little bit over 3 feet from the property line, and then bringing everything else into the interior of the backyard.
Very well. Thank you for that additional information, Ms. Gebhardt. The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you very much.
All right, good luck to you. Case number 2021-319, 511 East 32nd Street. The appellant is Zulfi or Zulfi Investments LLC. And this matter addresses variances needed to construct a second floor addition and install an entranceway to the second floor addition. And I'll hear from planning and staff.
Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted that this property is in the Waverly Business Area, Urban Renewal Plan area. That plan does require approval of building plans by this department. The applicant is encouraged to contact staff of the Planning Department concerning the proposed building addition. The department recommends approval of the application, is subject to the condition that all building additions, alterations, and signage are completed or installed in accordance with plans to be approved by the Department of Planning. Thank you.
Sure.
1 variance is required to construct this addition. It's a rear yard setback. 20 feet is required, 0 feet is proposed. This is a request for a second floor addition to an existing building that already takes up essentially 100% of the lot. So there's no variance required for the building height, and the second floor would be within the code height requirements. We also received letters of support from Oakenshaw Improvement Association and Waverly Main Streets. I believe Mr. Khan is the applicant on here, and I'll make him a panelist. Okay, Mr. Khan, you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you, Kathleen.
Great.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Khan. Is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this time, sir?
No, I think you guys covered it. Basically, what we're trying to do is construct a second floor, right? It's sandwiched between an existing building that's already there, and we're just going to be bringing it up, right? I did have a question, though. We did submit our architectural and engineering plans with the application itself. So is that something that we need to submit again for approval, or?
Well, the only thing you're getting approval for today from the BMZA is your setback, your actual construction drawings, and moving forward for that approval is done through permitting with DHCD. So they probably didn't let you move forward with those plans, and they sent you up here first to get your
Okay, got it.
variance approved.
Okay.
Does that make
Awesome.
sense?
Yep, thank you.
All right, terrific. Mr. Khan, the board having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you very much.
All right, good luck to you, sir. Case number 2021-320, 1216 Cedar Croft Road. Leslie Solomon is the appellant. And this application seeks to use the premises as a single-family dwelling with a large family daycare that will consist of up to 12 children. I'll hear from planning and staff.
Planning Department has reviewed this application and is recommending approval of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brett.
This is a daycare in an R5 zoning district, which is a conditional use approvable by the board. Last authorized use of the property was single-family dwelling and accessory daycare for a maximum of 8 children. So it's an increase from 8 to 12. And Ms. Solomon, you are a panelist, ma'am, and you are unmuted, so you should be able to speak now.
Thank you for looking over my application in a timely manner. I appreciate it. And I'm currently trying to increase my capacity due to a lot of daycare closings, due to COVID, and it's additional families that need care for their kids.
All right. Well, thank you for that additional information, Ms. Solomon. I can tell you that the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. So,
Thank you.
congratulations. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And final case on the consent docket, case number 2021-340, 1315 through 1317 Division Street. The appellant is Alyssa Dumsall, and this application seeks to use the premises as a cultural center. I'll hear from planning and staff.
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this application, notes that this property is a property in the Upton area master plan area. It is also a property that includes a designated historic landmark structure. The department is therefore recommending approval of this application, be subject to the conditions that all exterior changes, alterations, and improvements of the consolidated property are completed or installed in accordance with site, parking, and landscaping plans approved by the Department of Planning, and that all exterior changes to the landmark structure, including any additions, demolitions, alterations, and signage, are completed or installed in accordance with the authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
2 issues before the board. Conditional use. Cultural facility in this zoning district is a conditional use approvable by the board. And additional off-street parking. It's limited to 8 spaces. 15 are, they would need 15, but they have 8 spaces limited. So it's a 7-space parking variance. Many letters of support, including Baltimore Heritage, Upland Planning Commission, Black Women Build Baltimore, Baltimore Jewish Council, Union Baptist, Harvey Johnson Head Start, Douglas Memorial Community Church, Bolton Hill Community Association, the Dubois Circle, Friends of Harry Highland Garnet Park, Heritage Crossing Resident Association. In addition, I think this is one of the first letters we've received from a department head in support of an application that's not either planning or transportation. This came on behalf of, from DHCD by Alice Kennedy. And in that letter talks about the history of this particular property and its sale from DHCD to Beloved Community Services Corporation. This is the historic PS 103 Henry Highland Garnet School, elementary school attended by U.S. Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, who grew up nearby, has, as Mr. French stated, the landmark designation. The idea is to honor the legacy of Justice Marshall and other civil rights letters who called Upton home and providing community needs for the services. I think we also recently got letters from John Hopkins, several additional letters we received yesterday and today. I've got Reverend Al Hathaway with Beloved Properties and Alyssa Domsel, and both are unmuted and elevated to panelists.
All right. Folks, I'll hear from you for any additional information you'd like to add to your application today.
Great. Thank you so much to the members of the board. The rehabilitation of this historic building into a community asset is something that's been long anticipated, both by the community and the city and all the many organizations that Ms. Byrne read off. We do want to note for the record that much to our happiness, the closing on this building took place last Friday, October 4th. So the applicant is listed as the mayor and city council in the application, but it is now an affiliate of Beloved Services Community Corporation. And so, yeah, we're ready to go. With me today, as you mentioned, is Dr. L. Hathaway of Beloved Community Services Corporation, if you'd like to say a few words about the project as well.
Thank you.
Yes. My name is Dr. Alvin Hathaway. I'm the president and CEO of Beloved Community Services Corporation. I'm also, excuse me. I'm also the pastor emeritus of Union Baptist Church. It's located at 1219 Drill Avenue. I'm proud to say that Union Baptist Church is celebrating its 170th anniversary. It was founded in 1852. I was born 70 years ago in Providence Hospital, which was located in the 1400 block of Division Street. I lived at 1211 Drill Avenue, which is the block of Union Baptist Church. My ministry experience in this community has been as assistant pastor of Pennsylvania Avenue for 11 years, from 1993 to 2004. I served for 17 years in ministerial capacity at Union Baptist Church. Cumulatively, I've spent 20 years in professional ministry capacity in this community of my birth. I share this as a context for why we're requesting a conditional use of PS 103. Within this community and country, we're at a crossroads culturally. The accomplishments, struggles, personalities of prior years are fading away. A new generation, future generations are emerging without a pristine understanding of who participated in the advancement of our culture and the obstacles they had to overcome. I'm blessed to stand with one foot in the past and one foot in the future. The history and culture of the largest African-American historical district in America is in my memory and was a lived experience. The principal goal of this facility to be named the Justice Thurgood Marshall Center at PS 103 Henry Highland Garnett is to make the culture of this historic community come alive for future generations. Persons will come and learn about the cultural contributions of legal giants, Justice Thurgood Marshall, Clarence Mitchell Jr., Juanita Jackson Mitchell, Milton B. Allen, and so many others whose legal officers dotted this community. It will be the responsibility of the Judge Alexander Center for Education and Ethics to make that cultural history come alive and to inspire future generations of the careers and possibilities in the legal field. Persons from this community made outstanding contributions in the cultural arena of music and arts. It was a vital leg in the Chitlin circuit. Every musical personality or artistic talent of note frequented this community. The Billie Holiday Liberation Arts Project will expand upon the cultural legacy and expose this and future generations to the richness of our cultural heritage in the fields of art and music and the historical interpretation of historical artifacts. Many of our youth may have heard of the Tuskegee Airmen, but most will not know that members of that storied band of airmen were mainstays in this community. For example, Raymond Haysbert, president of Park Sausage, was a member of the Tuskegee Airmen. Lemuel A. Louis, Charles McGee, and so many others served with distinction. Our partnership with the Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport and the Project Takeoff program will teach future generations the cultural contributions African Americans made to the field of aviation and provide them with practical skills to learn about airport management and aviation as well. We will have cultural spaces within the facility that provide its visitors the opportunity to learn the contributions of Justice Thurgood Marshall. We will restore a classroom to its historic presentation so persons can be transported into the learning experience of a prior generation. We will rebuild within the facility a cultural space commemorating Congressman Elijah E. Cummings. Beloved Community Services Corporation was bequeathed with his campaign memorabilia and will be on display for future generations to hear his words, see his takes, and read his cultural historic statements. They will hear his booming voice say, "You are better than this." We will introduce people to Mr. Walter Sondheim, who served as the president of the Baltimore City School Board in 1954, and who moved to desegregate Baltimore City Public Schools, the first school district south of the Mason-Dixie line to do so. Visitors and persons will learn of amazing contributions of Clarence and Juanita Mitchell, Victorine and William Adams, Dr. Henry and Senator Verda Welcome, Dr. Gilbert and Marion Banfield, and so many more who contributed to the cultural richness of this community. We will preserve and we will promote the rich legacy of the Upton community. As people visit and learn within the facility, they will see youth as entrepreneurs because they will manage to gift shop, curate local art and artifacts, and they will have the opportunity to learn, but also to benefit from being the single and sole distributor of these amazing artifacts that this community has generated. I hope I'm conveying to you the rich cultural amenity this facility will be to their community, because it will not only be an asset for Upton, it will also be an asset to the nation. We are moving through the process to make PS 103 to become an asset of the National Park Service. If successful, Baltimore, Maryland will have home to two cultural assets, Fort McHenry and PS 103. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hathaway. Thank you so much.
And just before we jump on, I want to make sure that I said this correctly. I think I misspoke on the parking variance. So what it is, actually, they have too much parking. So you're required to have 4 and the max is double, but they have 15. So it's a variance to allow them to have more than 8. So it's to allow them to have the addition, Mr. French, correct me if I'm wrong, to allow them to have the additional 7 parking spaces. Normally it's the opposite. Normally we have people that don't have enough parking. So I think that's how I said it. So I just want to make sure I said it right for you guys to get the variance words corrected.
That is correct.
All right.
That is correct. However, I'd like to add that we are also working with the applicant on possible redesign of that parking area. And it is possible that that parking variance for going over the maximum might end up not being required. So that's still in flux at this point.
Okay, but just in case, it's a belt and suspenders kind of approach. So we're gonna, if they
Just
keep
in
what they
case.
have, they get the variance. And also to clarify that this is in Marble Hill, located in the Old West Baltimore Historic District. Ms. Petrelli wanted me to make sure that you all knew that.
Very well. Well, it's certainly my honor to say that the board, having heard your appeal, we believe you have sufficient information to approve the appeal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Dr. Hathaway.
Good to see everybody. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, that concludes the consent docket for today's session. Now I'll turn our attention to the regular docket, and we'll pick up with case number 2021-301. I'm sorry, 230 through 232 South Wolf Street. The appellant is Shane Green. And with regard to this application, seek to consolidate lots. Variance is necessary to construct a second and third floor addition and to use the premises as a multifamily dwelling with 12 units. And I'll hear from planning and staff.
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this application, notes that there is a lot consolidation process involved here, which is independent of the zoning appeal itself. However, obviously it must be completed before any shared use of the land occurs. The department notes that at least one of the structures on Durham Street may in fact provide off-street parking. It is not clear from the proposal whether the applicant would retain this off-street parking or in fact it would be converted to residential use. The specific issue the department has a concern about is the request to put on building additions and then basically get a lot area variance. The zoning code requires for 12 units, 8,625 square feet of lot area. The consolidated lot that is proposed would enclose only approximately 4,743 square feet. This would be a variance of 45% that would be required for approval. However, the department notes that the need for such a large variance is proposed to be created by the applicant by building additions to the buildings that are currently on the property. The department therefore doesn't consider this a case of unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty, as the applicant is basically creating the problem by proposing to build additional units on the property. The department is therefore recommending disapproval of the application because the amount of lot area variance needed for approval is excessive in view of the fact that this application proposes additions to existing structures in order to create additional habitable space. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So to piggyback on what Mr. French stated, there were essentially 4 separate units, all now to be consolidated. So those 4 separate units had 4 individual dwelling units. And when you consolidate, you get to keep what you had. So essentially, the applicant wouldn't have to come here if they were only going to keep 4 dwelling units in the consolidation. But what the applicant is requesting is 12 dwelling units within those original 4 that are now consolidated, and to then construct additions onto and within those 4 consolidated lots. So in order to do that, several variances are requested. An interior side yard setback, 10 feet is required, 0 is proposed. They would need 12 off-street parking spaces. 8 spaces are proposed, so it's a variance to 4. Variance of 4 parking spaces is requested. They would need bicycle parking, 3 long-term spaces, 1 short-term, 0 is being proposed. So it's a full variance to the parking space requirement. Lot area variance, 8,625 is required. 4,743 is proposed. So it's a 55% lot area variance. Square footage is 33,802 square feet, so it's a 45% variance. Lot coverage, 80% is allowed, 100% is what's proposed. 95 is currently existing, so it's an additional 20% variance. And the rear yard setback is 25 is required, 0 is proposed, so it's a 25 rear yard setback. So it's essentially, the applicant is proposing a 3-fold increase in density through after the consolidation. I don't see Shane Green here listed. I also don't see the name of the property owner listed as well. So if you are here as the applicant for 2021-301 230-232 South Wolf Street, please raise your hand or put in the chat. In the meantime, I will go through the call-in users. If you are here again for this matter on 230-232 South Wolf Street, please speak up after you hear 2 beeps. Next caller. Next caller.
Good afternoon, members of the board.
Hi, is this Mr. Green?
Yeah, Mr. Shane Gherkin is the last name.
Gherkin. Okay, I don't know why we have Green then. I apologize.
It's quite all right. But yes, as you were going through, there's one error. This is, I think it was stated it's 4 properties that are going to be consolidated. What we're proposing is 5. It would be 228 South Full Street, 230 and 232 is the current warehouse structure, which backs up to 237 and 235 South Durham. So it is.
I understand where, I think, Mr. French, can you shed some light on the difference between the 4 and the 5? Because we did look at that, sir, and we believe it's 4 based on the use of, what is it, 230 and 232. Is that?
Yeah. The department attempted to look for a record on 235 South Durham Street, and there is no record available to this department of that property, which suggests it may already be consolidated with another property that's on the list of the other 4 properties that you're proposing to consolidate.
Understood. Understood. as far as information, everything that was stated is accurate. We are proposing 12 units, of which one is a 2-bedroom unit, one is a studio. We are looking to maintain the first floor for parking, which would be for eight vehicles. The architect is planning on drawing a bike ramp inside the garage as well for, bike racks for storage. We have started process of consulting with state and federal agencies as far as keeping the historic value and design of the building in place. The 2 additions are on the inner side of the building, so it would not impact front and rear elevation. Yeah, that was the gist of the project.
Mr. Green, can you
hear concerns?
Yeah, can you address the hardship that's associated with this project, given that it's a, I understand that it's being developed and you have a concept of, taking what's there, almost, putting it all together and then filling in, I guess, whatever space there might be.
Correct.
That's one idea of how to develop the property. But it appears that that idea and that concept is what gives rise to the need for these various variances that are required. What is your response to the question of what is the hardship that requires this kind of development?
With how the property is currently laid out, the ability to really have accurate flow through the building is why the architect proposed the 2 additions. My wife and I have seen an increase, especially with the last 2 years, of just the demand for 1-bedroom apartments, with obviously the rise of COVID, people wanting to live on their own for safety. So as we consulted with Josh Nicodemus with NW2, he had proposed the 2 additions just for the overall general flow through the property, as well as to have the open courtyard for windows in all bedroom units per code.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what kind of shape these individual properties are as they exist that are sought to be consolidated? Are they habitable and, for example, rentable properties?
No, 230 South Wolf is currently, the first floor is, there's 2 cars that park in there. It's just a concrete slab. Essentially, it's garage space, which stretches all the way back to Durham. And again, we are looking to clean that up, keep that as parking for 8 vehicles off street. As you enter the building of 230 South Wolf and you go upstairs, the prior owner just, it is not habitable. There's no bathrooms on site. It is essentially a warehouse, is what the structure is. The roof itself is deteriorating. The floors are deteriorating. 228 South Wolf Street did have tenants in it. They would not grant us access when we purchased the building a few months ago, and they just relocated within the last week. I have not been able to walk through the unit as I'm traveling for work, but they were living there. So I would say 228 South Wolf Street is habitable, can be lived in. And then again, then 237 and 235 again are it's included in that warehouse space. It's just warehouse storage.
Okay. Could those properties be developed to have the same amount of capacity as exists versus increasing the capacity that you want to do under your design?
So the question is, could we continue to put together floor plan without the two additions?
Uh,
That would still equate to the 12 units that we're proposing?
Well, you're seeking 12 units based on how you've configured and how you've chosen to develop the site by consolidating these properties.
Correct.
But that's, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that's a choice that you're making as to how it is you're seeking to develop that particular site, as opposed to you might have somebody who would come in and say, okay, I'd like to redevelop these properties without consolidating them. I will take, the various addresses or locations that you described, and I will, develop those and make them habitable, and we will have the same amount of density as those particular properties. The fact that your design is to consolidate them all and then add additional units. Isn't that what's requiring you to seek these variances?
That is, you're 100% accurate by saying that. When we purchased this lot from an estate sale, it was with the hope of consolidating to have it as one functional building. By us not consolidating, I don't know how we could.
Do you mind if I jump in here for a minute?
Of course, please.
So, and Mr. French, please correct me if I'm wrong. You can consolidate it, but what your issue is your density.
Density, it's increased.
Like you wouldn't have to be here at all if you were to consolidate and reconfigure the interior and keep 4 dwelling units. So it's really the density that requires the variance. It's because of the number of dwelling units. You have to have so much lot coverage for X dwelling unit. You have to have so many parking spaces for X dwelling units. So when you push a building forward and back, you do get those rear yard setbacks, interior side yard setbacks, but lot coverage, lot area, off-street parking, all of that is associated with your density. The only 2 variances you're requesting that are associated with construction are an interior side yard setback and a rear yard setback. Mr. French, correct me if I was wrong on that, but that's
the existing building, how it's currently laid, stretches from Wolf Street to Durham Street sidewalks.
Right.
So there's no way that the current building structure, there's not a variance in the front or the back.
Right, I understand that, but if you were to keep 4 dwelling units, you wouldn't need the variance. But because you're asking to increase the number of dwelling units, we have to apply the code that we have today, which means that you have to get this lot area variance and the square footage variances. It's literally, it's like, because you're going up in dwelling unit count. Like, I understand 100% what you're saying, but you could consolidate, keep 4, and never have to be here.
Correct, but 230 South Wolf Street, it's a large warehouse. Is the board proposing, or I guess suggesting us keeping that as one residential unit?
Well, frankly, you can desire to have as many units as you like, and right now you're asking for 12. The problem is when you increase the density, we have to apply the code provisions and the findings that we must make in order to grant those variances. One of those is that there's some hardship and practical difficulty caused by the code, but the hardship and the practical difficulty is not caused by the code, it's caused by the additional density that you'd like to have, the increase from 4 to 12. It's caused because you want 12 as opposed to continuing 4. And so we're hard pressed to find hardship associated with that request because, and certainly from a development standpoint, understand, you've got a large property, you've got space in between, as you said, you've got a large warehouse that you'd like to develop. But, you know, it's a desire to develop it as opposed to a requirement that it be developed in that regard with that many units. So that's what we're addressing, and that's what's before the board, because we have to make a number of findings in order to grant those variances. And that's why we're asking you, what's the hardship associated with the, you know, what's presented that's out of your control. You could develop the property to have 4 dwelling units, consolidation and all. But that certainly is not what you have in mind. We're just taking your application as it is and applying what the again, the analysis must be before the board in order to grant the variances. So that's why I was asking you, what is the hardship or practical difficulty? If it's, well, there would be a lot of wasted space if we didn't develop more units. And it only makes sense for us to develop this if we can get X number of dwelling units out of it.
That's when we really met with our architect in purchase building, it was structured as an offer where we would be getting, I think his first assessment was between 10 and 12 units, depending on how he was going to configure it with 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms, in order for us to move forward with the purchase as a you know, a reasonable investment for us to keep this as 4 units and to develop 4 units. It would not be something that would be even close to a good business decision with having 4 units, especially considering that we're looking at a warehouse.
Understand. I do understand.
I don't
So,
understand.
Mr.
I'm
Chair,
strong as I kind of hear comments, just trying to wrap my brain around how we could make adjustments. Obviously, cutting the number down, if that's what the board required, we would have to try to work around that. I guess my one question would be, you know, as a hypothetical, if we were proposing 6 units, but they were all 2-bedroom units or 3-bedroom units because of space, and we didn't do the additions, would that still have the impact on density? That it seems to be one of the issues, kind of with this design.
I think density is the issue.
Yeah. Mr. Gerken, you might want a postponement to sit down with planning.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
You might want to request a postponement and sit down with planning.
that's a good suggestion.
Okay. Then I'll request a postponement, and we'll meet with planning.
Very well. We'll go ahead and grant your postponement, and once you have your meetings and work through some issues, we will be happy to have you back and hear from you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. I'll move on to case number 2021-311, 626 North Wolf Street. Dawn Stewart is the appellant, and this matter addresses variances needed to construct a 2-story side addition. Now hear from planning and staff.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, notes this property is within the Fells Point Historic District, and therefore any exterior alterations or other changes to the property would require approval by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. The department is recommending that approval of this application, if it is granted, be subject to the condition that all exterior changes, including additions, demolitions, and alterations, are completed in accordance with an authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French.
So again, this is an interior side yard setback. 10 feet is required, 2 feet 2 inches is proposed, 7 feet, it's a 7-foot 10-inch variance requested. The issue is it's in addition to a non-conforming structure. Technically, the board can approve the expansion of a non-conforming structure if it would create a new non-conformity, increase the degree of non-conformity. However, this is something that the board can hear and make its decision on. The existing structure is non-conforming. It's a teeny tiny little addition, essentially 7 feet 6 inches by 4 feet 2 inches to create 2 additional bathrooms, 1 on each floor. It's completely not visible from the street and it's interior. So it's one of these row homes that it's flush on the front, but as you come back, it tucks in. So we've got like the sally port and it's tucked in, I think, a little bit more. So it's essentially just a little bump out at the front. So it's small, it's tiny, but technically it is a non-conforming structure, which is why we put it on the regular docket so the board can hear from the applicant and make their own decision. But my problem is I don't see Dawn Stewart here on my list. So if you are, oh, there's Miss Stewart. All right. Miss Stewart, I'm gonna make you a panelist. And you are unmuted, Miss Stewart.
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
members of the board. Yes, you are correct in terms of the area that's being proposed for the modification. It is not going to change the front exterior, the front elevation. We have already gained the CHAP approval for the proposed plan, and we have spoken with the Fells Point Resident Association, and they're excited to see the property updated and new tenants moving in, which will be myself and my husband. The purpose for the modifications, as stated, will be to add 2 additional bathrooms, and that is just to be able to make the property more functional and comfortable to today's standards, seeing as that the property was built originally in 1920.
Okay. Let's see here. Discussion upon that. Obviously, ma'am, based on at least what we're looking at from the application, you don't dispute that the addition of the 2 bathrooms would increase. Well,
Do you want me to pull up the
Yeah.
plan? Would that be helpful?
why don't you do that if you can?
And is this 626 North Wolf or South
South
Wolf?
Wolf?
South Wolf.
Okay.
All right, hold on 1 second and I will pull this up. So I think the picture probably would be super helpful. For the board, because it took us a minute here to figure it out ourselves too, when we were looking at it. All right, let me share screen. Okay. So can you guys see the site plan?
Yeah,
You can see it.
So here is the existing building, and then this little guy here is the
Right.
addition. So it's coming out this much and this much. So this is, I think, the 4 feet, right?
Mhm.
And then this is the 7 feet. So this is the addition that they're requesting. So it tracks with the front of the house back and then
Right.
pops out a little bit there.
Katie, what's the non-conforming structure issue again?
So when you have a non-conforming structure, you're not supposed to expand, like you can't get any bigger. Unless you need it for like life, health, safety, certain things like that, if the building code necessarily requires it. So it's, in theory, you're not supposed to permit the expansion of a non-conforming structure. We see it sometimes with, say, properties that are, and let me see, I think it might be, let's see if we go, there's a way to kind of look at it. I think that the aerial photographs might be in here too, if you guys sit tight so you can take a look at it. So it's, we're leaving it up to the board. So if you look, here's the aerial. And it's, I think it's this one, this little guy right here. It's kind of hard to tell, but you see how with some of the buildings, how it, this isn't the greatest shot. It kind of like tucks in behind. And because it's such, if you look at all of the other ones, they essentially take up the whole footprint. They don't, you know, you can't go necessarily any higher because this is Fells Point, they're narrow streets. So that the intent of preventing a non-conforming from getting bigger is to make sure that it doesn't get wacky, right? With the rest of the neighborhood.
But the board does have discretion.
I would say it's up
Or
to
not.
you, but the code does not permit anybody to grant an extension of a non-conforming structure.
I guess
Mr. French might be able to.
I've got a question. What is non-conforming about the structure? Maybe I missed that part.
Mr. French, do you want to jump in on that? Let me, here, I'll pull this thing back up so you guys can see it.
Actually, I'd have to do some calculations. The property is in the R8 zoning district, and it is, I believe, technically, let me just look at one thing. One moment, please.
Sure, sure.
Okay, for example, the zoning code for R8 requires that a row house dwelling have at least 20 feet of rear yard. I'm not sure what the rear yard is on this property, because I'm not sure that plan that you have there shows the distance. If it does, you can check whether it's at least 20 feet. If this is considered a row house dwelling. What's kind of odd about it is, of course, at the street level, I believe there's a sally port that comes out, which would be shared possibly with the property immediately on the left as you're looking at this plan. So the building may technically get classified as semi-detached at street level. In that case, it's supposed to have a 25-foot rear yard, for example. Probably the big issue is going to be the interior side yard. Technically, if it's a semi-detached building, it's supposed to have a 10-foot side yard. Obviously, it does not have anything akin to that. If the sally port, in fact, is the width of the side yard, it's only 2.5 feet wide. So that alone would be enough to make this building non-conforming because it doesn't conform to the current zoning code requirement. It's an as-built condition, it's an historic structure. But again, if you read the zoning code very strictly, then this building is a non-conforming or non-complying structure.
But what happens when a non-conforming structure, quote unquote, predates the zoning code? It's not like it was, you know,
built that way.
It's allowed to remain indefinitely as it is. But the zoning code, the way it's written right now, does say you're not allowed to add on to or expand a non-conforming structure.
So just for
That's
for history's sake, prior to the passage of Transform, almost every row house structure in Baltimore City was non-conforming, right? Because the bulk regulation didn't even come close to what was actually built. So one of the reasons why, one of the big things that Transform did was to try to get rid of as many non-conforming structures as possible and make them be able to come into compliance with the code. This is one of those situations where the property is still non-conforming. Obviously, staff doesn't make this decision. Mr. French doesn't make this decision, so we're telling you that it's up to you guys.
Katie, can you pull up the actual language that prohibits the board from, I'd like to see the actual language.
Can I make a devil's advocate question while you find that language? Hypothetically, if we approve this woman and her husband to have enough bathrooms to exist in 2022 and not in 1920, which is the stereotypical year that my boyfriend says every house in Baltimore was built. What is there, like,
No one's opposing this.
right? And is someone going to come find her and fine her, or like, so it's just one of those things where
To address, I'll tell you, my point of it is, and I think I hear what you're saying, but are we setting a precedent? I mean, that's the concern I have.
That's what worries me.
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean, yeah, you know, certain things we can do and certain things we're precluded from doing, despite it making sense, it being reasonable and wanting to do so.
No, let me ask another question. There's something in there that you said about health and safety, right?
So if she were to go to DHCD and put in to do a modification, and they said your like the modifications that you're doing require you to upgrade your stairs, and she doesn't have enough space in order to upgrade her stairs, then she could expand her non-conforming structure in order to put in new stairwells that meet code. Like that's when you're allowed to expand a non-conforming structure. So let me screen share with you guys on non-conforming structures. Can you guys see this? Non-conforming structures. So
Well, probably with my son's eyes, but
all right, hold
not
on. Let me
mine.
make it bigger.
Yeah, no, I can't see any of that.
Is that better?
And I'm the youngest one here.
Is that better?
That's
All right.
much better.
Okay. All right. So essentially, oh, this is non-conforming structures, blah, 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 blah. Is devoted whole, blah, blah, blah. All right. Continuation. Non-conforming structures may be continued subject to requirements in the subtitle. A non-conforming structure may not be expanded if the expansion would in any way create a new non-conformity, increase the degree of non-conformity, or increase the bulk of the structure. So repairs, maintenance, and alterations. Normal stuff you can do. No structural alterations may be performed on any non-conforming structures unless the alteration is required by law, necessary to restore the structure to a safe condition on order of any official charge. The alteration will result in eliminating the non-conformity, or the alteration will not in any way create any new non-conformity, increase the degree of non-conformity, or increase the bulk of the structure. Those are the instances in which structural alterations can occur.
What does bulk of the structure mean?
Mr. French?
In
Size?
this situation, I think it would mean floor area. One other possible resolution for the applicant, if you keep scrolling on through here, Katie, go to 18.411, administrative bulk adjustments, a minor expansion. I don't know if anybody attempted to calculate what the existing square footage of the floor area of the building is that's there now, and how much additional square footage of floor area would be added by the proposed addition. The zoning administrator does have in the zoning code some limited discretion to grant administrative variances if they are minor. And I would ask the applicant whether in fact they first attempted to pursue getting a minor variance through this 18-411 provision section in the zoning code, because although the board may not have the authority to grant variances, the zoning administrator has the authority to grant minor variances. The key is, what does the calculation work out to?
Right.
And does it qualify as a minor variance? And for that reason, yes, the idea of possibly deferring a complete hearing of this appeal to allow the applicant time to consult with the zoning administrator and find out if it's possible to get a minor variance approved through this portion of the zoning code, might be the route to consider.
That's
Thank
very
you.
helpful, Martin. I guess one question I have is it doesn't appear that we have jurisdiction to hear that case, but do we have jurisdiction to hear an appeal of failure to grant a minor variance?
You would, because you have jurisdiction to appeal any
That's-
negative decision of the zoning administrator.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And so then you would be standing in the shoes of the zoning administrator to grant a minor variance or
Right.
deny a minor variance.
Right.
So yes,
So
I
if
have,
this were
yeah, go ahead.
If this were my house, I would postpone this case, go to the zoning administrator, see what they say, and if it's not in my favor, appeal to this board right here.
You got it. That's the correct
I agree.
outcome. Miss Stewart, did you hear all of that?
Yes, so if I'm understanding, we need to make the request of the zoning administrator for a minor variance exception.
Yes. Now, this is what I'm gonna ask you to do, is I'm gonna kind of keep this alive here. But if you request essentially a postponement or withdraw, send me an email and I'll help you do that.
Okay, and then I guess this is my first time going through this process, so you said a postponement or a withdrawal. I guess what would be the best option for the quickest return?
I would request a postponement and then just if you have to come back up, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But if you just postpone right now, it kind of leaves your status with the board in limbo until you can get a resolution from the zoning administrator.
What happens
Okay.
if the case is, if this case that we have right now, her actual zoning appeal is still open when she wants to appeal a decision of the zoning administrator? Can we would it be two cases open essentially for the same property?
So what we would do is she could withdraw at that time and then file a negative appeal. But until she gets some kind of resolution from the zoning administrator, I'd hate for it to just kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think
Keep all your options open.
Okay.
So would you like the postponement of this matter today, Ms. Stewart?
Yes, please.
Very well. I will grant you the postponement and, wish you luck in your efforts with the zoning administrator. And perhaps we'll see you back. Hopefully we won't have to. And
then just to clarify, is that if we are able to have this granted through the zoning administrator, then we would just need to follow up to withdraw this particular case.
Correct.
And then if the zoning administrator denied it, then we would need to submit a new case to
the board appealing that denial.
Okay.
So if you want some additional clarification, send me an email at the board. You can send it to bmza@baltimorecity.gov and I'll get it that way, or you can send it right to me, Kathleen with a K .Byrne, BYRNE @baltimorecity.gov, and I'll point you in the right direction to get started with the zoning administrator.
Okay, then. Thank you so very much.
Okay.
thank you, Ms. Stewart. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that took us around the barn, as they say.
That was a good discussion.
We're right at the right place, I think. So I believe that concludes
Nope, we have one more. So we have the last matter that we received opposition on today. We also had a request for a Spanish interpreter for this particular property.
That's Dundalk Avenue?
Remind me which one we're on. Are we on
2021 315.
315?
Okay.
That's what I was on. Okay, let me call case 2021-315, 1213 Dundalk Avenue. Let's see. Luis Montes de Oca is the appellant, and this matter addresses variances to bulk regulations related to a demo existing parking pad, demo the existing fence all around the perimeter, to install new concrete into the parking pad, and to install new concrete patio in the back of the house. And I'll hear reports from planning and staff.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
You're welcome.
1 second.
Don't we need to figure out if this is going to be postponed or not first?
Well, we do. So we need to kind of bring them into the fold and let them know what's going on. And while we have Roxana here to help with the with the translation, so we're going to start with that. So right. So but I'll right now the only thing in front of the board on the application is lot coverage. So they are the application requests pad, patio, and fence to install new concrete parking pad of 14 by 54 and a new patio 40 by 40. The community opposition letter that we received today from the president of the Graceland Improvement Association says that the 40 by 40 proposed patio area doesn't conform with the neighborhood. This is more of a type of a large courtyard or parking lot rather than residential parking. There's nothing to say that this is a patio won't be used further for parking areas. Way too much concrete proposed. The rest of the neighborhood homes have a much smaller patios with grassy landscaped areas to present a neighborhood feel. We do not want to portray a commercial type look in our community. Also, the parking pad is too long for a single family home. Too much concrete portrays a commercial like field, unacceptable to a traditional residential neighborhood. So in addition, they talk about the fence, but there's no variance request for a fence height. We don't have a plan or drawing for a fence height. So I think that the application, 1, is incomplete, and 2, there's no opportunity to have a conversation with Graceland Park Improvement. So what I'm going to do is I have Luis Mondadesco. I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I'm going to make you a panelist. So Mr. Mondadesco, I've unmuted you. Roxana, I've also made you a panelist. Let me see.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So I've got 2. So Mr. Monadesco, can you speak? All right, there's another Mr. Monadesco in here. I'm going to also make that one a panelist. So Mr. Monadesco, can you speak now? All right, so it doesn't appear that, let's see, we have that we can.
Katie, if he doesn't understand English, perhaps Roxana should ask if he wants to speak.
Oh, that's an excellent idea.
Señor Montes de Oca, ¿puede escuchar? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Roxana.
Okay. Señor Montes de Oca, ¿puede escuchar?
He's unmuted. Do you want to see if maybe he can put something in the chat, Roxana?
Yes. So he should be able to see it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He should be able to see the chat at the bottom of the thing. There should be the little chat icon, and he should be able to type in there.
All right.
And you should be able to see it too now that you're a panelist. All right, let's see. Okay, he's just sending this to me privately. So, Roxana, can you ask him to send the message to you, like from the drop down to your name?
Yes, I'm typing. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
So I sent the message to him.
All right, so we see them, but we can't hear them.
Is he messaging you? Because I see the message that I sent to him, but I don't see anything back.
He just sent me a message. Yes, I am listen.
I can see someone's face now. I can see people.
Yes.
Yeah, so we see you. Let's see, let me respond back. You know what, Roxana, maybe I can give you host privileges
Okay.
and then you can see it. Let's see, hold on a second. Privileges. Yeah. All right.
They're muted right now.
They are. Let's see. I think I've got like no,
I see
they're
them talking, but I can't hear
right.
them.
Yeah, they're unmuted on here and the camera's on. All right. Let's see. All right. I asked them to type directly to you in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
All right, he sent it to me again. All right, I don't think we're gonna have any success right now. So, can you hear us? Can you hear us? You can hear us. Okay. So Roxana, can you just talk to them?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's just try that. And just tell them that I think basically because of technical difficulties and other things, I think we need a postponement.
Okay.
And then we can maybe set up have him put his phone number in the chat, and then you, me, and the applicant, we can have like a three-way conversation.
Okay.
Want to do that?
Sure.
All right.
Señor Montes de Oca, lo que tenemos que hacer por problemas técnicos, vamos a tener que posponer su caso. Entonces, lo que puede hacer es ponernos su número telefónico en el chat, se lo puede mandar a Miss Katie Byrne y vamos a tener una conversación, ustedes, y yo me voy a incluir en esa conversación para hablar sobre los detalles, pero básicamente hoy, por problemas técnicos, vamos a tener que posponer. That okay?
Let's see if he, are we good? Okay, so I think the universal thumbs up sign for postponement. Okay, I got your phone number, so let me write that down. 03. And then, so Roxana, if let them know, let's see, if can we call them at, let's see, we're done now, so the board will meet, see if we can call them at 3:15 today to talk, the three of us. Can we do that?
Sure.
Let them know.
¿Les podemos hablar a las 3:15 esta tarde? ¿Sí? ¿Está bien? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I'm gonna give these guys the boot.
Good job, guys.
So actually, before we end, I think there are a couple people in the chat who seem like they're here in opposition on something. Katie, do you see that in the Q&A actually?
I did. think that I saw that. Let me see. That was Miss. I think I addressed the issue that she had. Let's see, Jennifer.
Yeah, I see Jennifer and Alida Mendez, and I'm not totally sure which case
So
they were here
Jennifer
for.
was here for the one we just had that we just postponed, but she had put it in the Q&A, so I did not see that. But that one's been postponed and we're not going forward with that. So Jennifer, if you are still here.
When you say the one we just did, are you talking 315?
No, I'm sorry, 311.
11.
So the 311 that we just postponed was, she said that she was a neighbor next door and wanted the opportunity to be heard. But we didn't move forward with that. So, but she put it in the Q&A and I didn't see it.
Okay.
And then, let's see. And then I didn't, again, this was in the Q&A. It was not in the chat, so we didn't see it. And I can't tell if Alida Mendez was here for, I don't think she was here for, she asked a question about parking for the 1315, 1317 Division Street. And I said that, like, we had already moved on from that. And again, it was the Q&A, we didn't see it. And I said, street parking, and I said that would be a question for Department of Transportation. So
Okay,
I don't.
if it was addressed, then I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure we didn't leave somebody who wanted to say something about one of the cases.
I don't believe that we did. I think she wanted to ask about the street parking, but that wasn't before actually the board. It was only the use as, I guess, the cultural center. And again, I made the announcement, please don't use the Q&A because I can't see it. Can only see the chat at the very beginning. So I don't think we have any real additional opposition for anything that's still going forward. But thank you, Becky, for looking at that.
Okay.
Wonder if there's a way I can turn that off. I bet you there is. I have to figure that out.
Have to work through that. Okay. Okay, can we move to the deliberation portion, if there is any?
I don't think there is any.
Yeah, I don't think there is any. Everything that would have been deliberated is postponed, I think.
Yeah, I
Right.
think all three things that we were gonna have deliberation on have all been postponed.
Correct.
Okay.